or do you have to pass it before you run?
Oh no, you can run with the ball and lacrosse, but a guy can block you.
Right.
So and they can cross check you with the stick. So it's like you're trying to run with the lacrosse stick, and somebody else gets his lacrosse stick. And it's like nobody.
Okay.
So it makes it a little, you got to be a little judicious in your running.
Hmm.
And they can like beat your hands with the stick. It's like, ow. That's why they wear those big lacrosse gloves. Because the other guy who's trying to block you was like whipping at your hands with the stick.
Mm. Okay, so 88 people are going to ride skates,
We're
ride
talking the
skateboard.
Olympics right now, people who
Yeah.
just joined us.
Yeah, so 88 people are going to ride skateboards for the Olympics.
Ah.
That's apparently a sport now. And there's
They're games. They're not sport. Quit saying they're sports. It's the Olympic Games.
there's parks. There's skateboarding in a park, and then there's skateboarding in the street, and those are different apparently.
Of course, obvious.
Yeah, like the triple jump.
The triple jump. Still want to know how that was invented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Speaking of,
there's
speaking of,
there's shooting with a pistol, and there's shooting with a rifle.
oh yeah, and that whole skiing and shooting thing, that was always a little strange. It was
Oh
like,
yeah, biathlon.
we ski for a bit, we lie down and shoot for a bit, we ski for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Finland had to have invented that one, right?
Yeah,
They're shooting at
first,
Russians over there on skis all the time.
yeah, or they're hunting moose. I mean, let's ski for a bit. Ooh, moose, shoot. So they're actually practicing shooting elk.
But speaking of sports, I'll show you a couple of things that I got this week. The cheapest sports memorabilia ever.
Hmm.
I'm a NFL fan, American football. New York Giants is my team, and occasionally I buy football cards, just occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this one type of football card that I don't know, must be around for 10, 15 years now, where they take a piece of game worn jersey. I should put that in quotes because there have been scandals with jerseys not actually being game worn. And they clip out a little square inch piece of the jersey and put it in a card. And I got one of the, and of course, they're chase cards. For those of you who don't know, like and just about any card thing now, there's the base set, and then there's all the chase cards. And the chase cards are like one per pack, one per box, one per whatever. Those are the ones everybody wants. Nobody wants the base set card of anything. Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. So all the base cards are like, worthless. So I just decided to look last week on eBay to see if I could find some of those really cheap Giants jersey cards. And sure enough, I could. Let's see, the first one I got in, like I said, rookie ticket. See, hold on, let me get this out of here so it's not so much glare. There's the little piece of the jersey right there.
Okay.
And that's the overall card. And this is Kadarius Toney. He was on the Giants for about half a season. They drafted him for some. I still don't know why, but they're like, he's terrible. He doesn't fit in. He's not a Giants player. So like halfway through his rookie season, they traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs, where he promptly won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's like Giants fans like hate Kadarius Toney. They're always making fun of him because he was like their first round draft pick, and he like didn't even make it through his rookie year, which is like unheard of. But I kind of have a soft spot for him. What did he do that was so screwy that he couldn't stick with the team?
If you guys didn't have college sports, how would you have people doing sports?
Football? I have no idea. With baseball, there's the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
With basketball, there's of course college sports. There's also the G League, but college sports is like the de facto training ground for the NFL. I mean, it makes $1 billion on its own too, but
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
hold
With high school sports, but the thing is, you guys have high school sports. Are your high school sports people ready to become pro right after high school? Right.
with the rare exception, yes, like LeBron James, he went from high school right to the NBA, and possibly you can do that in the NBA. In the NFL, it's a lot harder because those are really big men in the NFL.
Right. Because we can have pro soccer players at 16.
Right.
It's rare. They have to be real good, but we do have pro soccer players at 16.
Yeah.
And until the 1990s, pro soccer players didn't actually finish high school.
Right. It would be really hard to be a pro football player at 16. They are just too big.
Yeah.
And you might be able to do it as like a wide receiver, maybe as a defensive back, but not as a lineman, not as a quarterback, maybe as a running back. But I mean, football players are just so big, fast, and strong that a 16-year-old can't keep up. Like in the NBA, LeBron James, and he was an exception. But if you can't keep up in the NBA, but you're like LeBron James, they'll just put you on the bench for a year or two. And the football field, you'll just get murdered. I mean, they're just too big, strong, and you could get totally destroyed. Like your confidence shot, especially when you're playing offensive and defensive line. There's such specialized skills that come with that position that nobody really knows about. So if you're, an 18-year-old and you expect to be an offensive lineman going up against these really savvy veterans who are, 6'4", 260 pounds, and can move quick as a whisper, you're gonna get left in the dust. And defensive line as well. If you expect to rush the quarterback and you got a 320-pound man in front of you, and you got no experience, you're never going to get through. Matter of fact, I just saw a video. Speaking of LeBron James, I don't even know who the NFL offensive lineman was. But there's a video of an NFL offensive lineman and LeBron James just kind of fooling around on the basketball court, and LeBron James was just trying to get around this NFL offensive lineman who's just trying to block him, and LeBron James couldn't get around him. He couldn't get through him. He was just laughing. He was like, "Oh," because the whole offensive lineman thing is you don't let anyone pass you. That's what you're saying. And there's all sorts of specialized things you got to do to not let someone pass you. And if you're, 17, 18, you're not going to be able to get past anyone who knows how to stop you. Also, players in the leagues go to Canada or Europe. Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, well, American basketball players in Europe, they stay here because they can't get drafted to the NBA.
Right.
And there are a few countries where they get paid well enough because basketball is not. See, you guys have to split time between basketball, football, and baseball.
Right.
And even baseball is very much an East Coast thing, except for the Dodgers. But we are 98% soccer, 2% everything else.
Mine, the comic says best soccer clubs recruit best kids, yes, in 6 or 7.
Yep.
The top of most prepared at a younger age. The American system avoids that.
Yeah.
Well, they do. They just go into football and baseball. Yeah. If you're a left-handed pitcher at 12 years old, holy cow. The world is your oyster. And how are you tonight, Wilson?
I'm okay. We're just having trouble signing in. The computer wanted to stall, and I restarted before that, but it was just that it didn't want to connect. So hopefully I'll be on. I can't make any promises.
Did you guys, by the way, to bring us back to the world of comics, We've been talking Olympics and sports for a few minutes. Did you guys hear about this week's Marvel Comics controversy?
Which one?
Which-
The page that you have to
Right,
read
which
online.
I actually, 2 weeks ago, when I got that X-Men #1 with the Scott Koblish cover, I mentioned the QR code that brought you to an extra page. Well, this week, the rest of the world discovered that, and some of them were really pissed off about it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the pirate sites didn't have the page.
That very well could be it. But people were saying, I paid good money for this comic and I don't get the whole story. And they were shaking their fists on the internet. I can understand that.
Yeah. You remember when they gave out codes so you could, even when you bought the comic, and then you could keep a copy, digital copy, go to the website and download it.
Right.
You know what was easier to do back then? Go to the pirate site and download it, than going to the Marvel Comics site and download it.
It's still easier to do now.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you bought the comic. There's the thing. Okay, I don't mind pirating the comic that I already bought.
Right.
But they give you the code so you can go to the website. You have to jump through so many hoops.
Yes.
Never mind. I'm just going to go to the pirate site.
Yeah, well, that's what one of my friends does. He buys the comic, and he used to enter the codes, but he finally got tired of it. He was finally like, it's easier just to go to the pirate site and download it than to enter this. It's like a 10-digit code. If you get a number wrong, you got to start over again. And he was just like, I finally just stopped entering any of the codes from the comics and just went to the pirate site and got it. But it's like, oh, okay. He was buying neither of the comics he bought. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't like having to put the code in, and then I put the code in on the computer, and then have to watch it on my device to actually read it.
Okay.
I would rather read it on my computer directly. Yeah. And it's a weird thing. You can occasionally get it to work on the computer, but it's not all the time. They really want you to use the app. It's like, go to the app, use the app, go to the app. And it's like, I don't want to go to the app. I have my computer system already open. I'm already putting it in through it. And the other thing, not all of them has the code. Sometimes, I'm guessing because they're way too close to print date, they don't have the time to put that extra code. So in the website, in the page that you would usually find a code, it will tell you, go to the web and then log in that you own the book. And then what happens is they send you the code.
Right.
So there's some more extra steps in it. So in a way of trying to protect the comic book from the hackers or whatever you want to call them, the sites, the pirated sites, in order to try to protect it, they just made it easier for you to go onto the pirated site and get it.
They made it more convenient.
It did. It definitely did.
Wasn't there a brief time, I'm trying to remember this, a couple of years ago, where you had to take a picture of the cover of the comic and then they'd send you a code? And I think some people were just taking pictures at the comic store of the covers,
I considered that. That popped into my mind because you do have to take a picture of the comic in order to get that. It's been a while since I did it. You have to take a picture of the comic book.
I think they may have stopped that, but I'm not sure.
You got these are the following books, I did it not that long ago when I did it. Within the last 6 months, I did it. So, but yeah, you have to show them the photo, and it did cross my mind easily. It's like, I don't even have to buy the book. I could technically just take a photo of it off the shelf. And it completely crossed my mind, mainly because I have the mentality of a heist. I like the idea of a heist. I like the idea of a good heist. So when I see something that's like that's just too easy, you can easily get over on Marvel for that. And again, my mental state and my time I spent at Marvel, I would be more than happy to get over on one. I don't because I'm also a scaredy cat and I'm lazy.
Speaking of heists, I
Uh-huh.
got 14 comics this week.
What?
Another huge. I think it was 3 weeks ago. I also got 14 comics. And what's weird about this week too? 2 of them were awful. I mean, how often do I say I got some really awful comics? Not that often. This week I got 2 ones that I was just like, oh my goodness, that was awful. But speaking of heists, this is the last issue of Under Heist by David and Maria Lapham. Issue 5, Boom Studios. And this one had a weird ending. I was wondering how they were going to end it. Let's see here. Hello, everyone, Lord Tatman. Howdy, Cavernous Comics Communicator, Sleepy Reader. Undead Quinn, did you get the new EC book? I did. Unfortunately, that was one of the terrible ones. Hello, Darkness. They would be better off posting the books after a couple of weeks than getting ad revenue, having people on their site where they could sell it. Yeah, who knows? They would be better off so many ways, but who knows what they can do. But anyway, here's Under Heist. And this one ended really, really like it started out as a heist book. There were these takes place in New York City. For some reason, I keep thinking it takes place in LA, but it's New York City. Maybe Lapham just doesn't draw New York City convincingly enough for me. I don't know what it is. You hardly ever actually see the city. They're always kind of inside places. But it's this guy and his crew who worked in the tunnels and the subways under New York City, and they ran across a criminal crew who were planning this robbery. And then he got the guys to get in his tunnel workers going, "Hey, why don't we rob the robbers? That sounds like a plan, huh?" So that was the first issue. Then things went bad, as they always do in a David Lapham book. And then as things went bad to worse over the ensuing, 5 issues, we slowly found out that there was something off. It's like this guy who he knew who's in the crew, he saw kill himself, and then he's back. Eventually he figures out that this is some sort of hellish afterlife he's caught in. He's in the continual aftermath of this heist gone wrong. There's like a bookie after him. There's a bookie after his girlfriend. All this stuff keeps going wrong, and he can't escape it. That's his sort of hell he's in. But the weird thing was, as part of whatever thing's going on here, on his crew of heisters is this woman. This woman who, I don't know, maybe the bookie was after her. I can't remember. But there's 2 women in the story. There's the woman who's on the heist crew with him, and there's his girlfriend. Somewhere around issue 3 or 4, they switched bodies. Why did they switch bodies? I don't know. He's not sure. They're not sure. They don't know what happened, except it's all part of this hell. And so the story ends, if you can call it ending, with, the bookie is that he's just trying to escape. So it finally ends with him escaping, but not with his girlfriend, but with his girlfriend in the heist woman's body. And that's just kind of the resolution. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll show you the last page. Okay, we're getting out of here. And it was just like, huh? That was, and the whole time I'm reading this, I'm wondering how they can possibly wrap this up. And they wrapped it up very strangely. It's like they didn't even wrap. It wasn't terrible or anything. I enjoyed the book, but it was a very strange wrap up. Unlike other Lapham books, the characters are not memorable. Yeah, and also unlike other, it's weird. Other Lapham books, since they take place in the real world, there's always consequences to actions. And the consequences are bad. But since they're in this sort of hell thing, and consequences are always bad, it's like the consequences weren't bad. Because there's no such thing as good consequences here. So, like, I have to say, I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed seeing some David Lapham in color, but I don't think they stuck the landing at all. But it was still a good book. This still isn't one of the terrible books of the one. Still isn't one of the 2 terrible books of the week. So, good evening, Tats Comics. Good to see you here tonight. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Wilson?
Yes, I made it to the comic book shop today.
All
But I
right.
realized it was funny. Once I got there, I picked up a couple of books off the shelf, then went to go pick up my books that were waiting for me, and they were none waiting for me. I did not have to go in.
Sleepy Reader says, great point about consequences. Yeah, that just occurred to me today, I think.
So because of that, it was like, well, I'm glad I did pick up some stuff off the shelf. And the books that I picked up off the shelf, and you'll know the reason why I picked it off the shelf the moment I show it to you, is 2 issues of DC Comics. I got The Flash.
Ah, okay. The Jose Garcia Lopez covers, the
Jose
DC
Garcia Lopez
style.
cover. This is
You
Flash
won't have to buy the style guide at this rate.
issue number. I think there's only 7 of them.
Okay.
Well, according to the ad in here.
Ah, okay.
I think there's only 7. And I actually read this issue of The Flash. It's issue number 11. And we jump right into a middle of a story. Not even what happened before. It's the whole Flash family trying to figure out what happened to not Barry Allen, to Wally West, who's one of the Flashes that I do enjoy because he was basically the Flash during the whole time I was reading DC Comics. So he is technically my Flash. Beautiful artwork, but it falls into the trope of Flash comics into how to decipher what is the actual reason why they have powers. Why is the why does the
it's an exploration of the Speed Force?
There you go. That was the name I couldn't think of. It's why the Speed Force is what it is. And it's interesting because of that, but I was happy when they explained it. It was the Speed Force that gave them powers. And I was good with that. To me, it's like, this is what you get, how they got their powers.
Yeah.
Whatever the magical Speed Force thing is. But then they over explain it. And every few years, they try to explain it to the point where it's like, this is the information you're giving me, that it's a living entity, which is fine, which is what they gave us before. But now they want to explore it even more. Now, granted, maybe leading up to that, up to this particular issue, from issue 1 to 10, might have been a great explanation going towards it. I just happened to jump into the middle of it, and to me, I don't even get a previously or what's happening at all. And a lot of it happens in this realm that's just outside the Speed Force. And that it seems like the spoiler is it's starting to go, you have a Speed Force, but you have other forces. And they mention this through the DC universe forever.
Right.
There's a time force, there's this, and that. But now this is suggesting maybe all the forces come from the same place. And it's like, oh,
okay. Unifying force theory.
Right. Where it's a living thing. It's like, okay, so what are we? Are we within the living thing? And it's more like, no, you're parasites. And it's like, okay.
Eric P says Wilson might have to go to a pirate site to see what came before.
That's not my thing. Is one of those things. It's
He
like,
doesn't need to know.
I don't I don't need to know, and plus I don't want to give the site my attention because I kind of don't believe in it, only because I know the people who work on these things, and I work in comics. I don't feel like going to a pirated site is a good idea for
Well,
new
since
stuff.
who was it? And Undead Quinn asked about this one. I'm going to show this, which is one of my two terrible books I got this week. This is I don't even like that it's from Oni Press, but it's an officially licensed EC comic. Epitaphs from
I
the
did see
Abyss.
that on the shelf.
Nice cover. All the artwork is pretty good. 4 stories. I think, what was this? $5. But it's like the writing was I just didn't like it. The writing seemed to me to be somebody's idea of what a horror comic would be who's never read a horror comic. It's like 5th generation Xerox of a horror comic. Hoopla is a good legal way to do it. That's true also. Lord Tatman says, I didn't read the EC book yet. I bought it. I hear the stories suck. What it did. Yeah, that's the problem. The stories suck. I mean, the first story, they weren't even stories. The first story is about a egotistical, thinks more of himself writer, and then, who unsuccessful, but thinks he's a genius and should be recognized as a genius. And he, and then his roommate, who's not even a writer, is like, ooh, do you want to read my script? I just wrote a script for the first time because I was inspired by you. And of course, the writer thinks the roommate's script is genius. He's like, holy cow, how did this guy write this script? So, of course, what does he do? He murders the roommate and tries to pass off the script as his own. And then the roommate just comes back from the dead and kills him. What? How? Why? People don't just come back from the dead and kill their murderer, but here they did. They just came back from the dead and killed him for no particular reason. And there's even there's even some meta commentary on writing in this. That it says, Dylan always said that endings are the hardest part of any story. It should be inevitable, but also surprising at the same time. The audience should never see it coming, but they should feel like it's exactly the right thing. None of that came true in this story. And it was just like, what? Yeah, you're not the first to say that. Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people said that about this. And then the second story is just, once again, is this a story? A journalist wants to figure out why this conservative senator who was pro-choice suddenly flip-flopped and now was anti-abortion. Okay. So she investigates and found out that I don't know who these random people were doing surgery on her to change her opinion. With the implication being that they're now going to do surgery on the journalist to change her opinion. And it was just like, huh? What? That came out of nowhere.
Yep.
And it's kind of pointless. And that's the story of this. Then we get a what we got here. Bonsoir, comic book musketeers. Good evening, SBPT. Then the third story is just like some guys with rifles show up to this family's home, tie them all up in the basement, still catching breath after Celine's performance. That's right. I watched that too in the opening ceremonies. Who writes this? I've never even heard of any of the writers. The writers are Jay Holtham, Chris Condon, Stephanie Phillips. She have her. I read her. What does she read from Boom? What does she write from Boom? Right? She's the one who writes the Grim Reaper one that I can't remember the name of now. I think that's her. And Brian Azzarello is the last one. Him, of course, I've heard of. But like this is the third. Like I said, the family is just taken hostage, and the father is given a gun and says, "You have to kill yourself, your wife, or one of you. You have to kill one of the four of you, or we're going to kill all of you." Okay. And we never quite figure out why or what's going on. There's a timer going on the whole time. And he eventually shoots someone. We don't even see who. And then the last, I guess this is our twist ending. It cuts to some guy on the internet who was betting on this. He's like, "Ooh, I won the bet. Now I've got lots of money." But meanwhile, you see the guys with rifles coming to his house. And it's like, what? Okay. It just Grimm. There's the book. Yeah, I think Stephanie Phillips writes Grimm. And then let's say, what's the last story? I couldn't even explain the last story. There's these two people running from these monsters, and I think it has something to do with being anti-vaccine. And the people are anti-vaccine, and the monsters got vaccinated and turned into monsters. Then it ends with the dude getting the disease and dying, and the woman's like, "Oh no, what am I going to do now?" It's like, "Don't worry, we're going to eat you when you die." And it's like, what? Was that a story? Yeah, sounds like no one knows how to write short fiction. Yes. There's definitely no one who knew how to write. Like I said, it reminded me of people who heard of EC Comics and may have read a couple of horror stories, but really didn't have any idea what a horror. So knock off. No, it was nowhere near as good as Red Room, and I wasn't a fan of Red Room. I mean, there was really no horror in it. It was just like, here's some characters, and then bad things happen. Okay. Very, very, very disappointed in it. I mean, it got an F for me. That's how bad it was. That's how little I enjoyed that. Though the art was fine. Nothing wrong with the art. There was clarity in the storytelling. The art was all right, but the stories were just like, why am I reading this?
Who publishes that?
That is an official EC comic, because Oni Press is the publisher, but they actually licensed the EC Comics name.
Okay.
So it's officially an EC comic, whatever that means. It's got the EC logos and stuff, but it's got the Oni Press on the back. It's got the EC logos on the front. Whoops. EC logos on the front there, the circles. And there's a billion covers. All the covers were pretty good. Who does? But the stories were just, they weren't even stories.
Yeah, it sounds to me like someone came up with the idea, hey, you know what we can license?
Yeah.
Let's license an EC book. All right. And then it's like, oh, who do we have to write something like this?
Right.
And
the Creep Show comic, which is, knockoff EC that I got last year and the year before, that was like the Creep Show comic was a solid B. This was an F.
Yeah.
So it was a lot better. But yeah, very disappointed because I'm an EC fan. I feel like Dwellings did the short horror. Oh, they did. Dwellings was terrific. That was the one by, oh my goodness, his name just flew out of my. Remember the horror comic I got that looked like a Harvey comic?
Yes, I do recall.
That was terrific horror. Really good stuff. Sounds like the bad stories you'd hear to campfire. They hardly qualified as stories. Anyone read Nemesis from Mark Miller? Loved it. I did not read that one. I've kind of burnt out on Mark Miller. Jay Stevens. That's who did Dwellings. Yeah, terrific stuff. Think if you got the $9 foil color. Ooh.
That's the one I saw at the shop. It was like, oh, wait, didn't Jared pick it up? I'll wait to see what his review is. I would not have picked up the foil one, but I do remember seeing the comic itself on the shop. And it's like, because I remember watching your YouTube about what you picked up.
Right.
And it's like, or your TikTok about what you picked up, but didn't give a review of it yet.
Yeah. It was just kind of like a copy of a copy of a copy. We got here. Nemesis was definitely his favorite pickup of the week. Oh, by the way, Dwellings, All Hallows Eve special #1 coming in October. Oh, I'll pick that one up. Dwellings was a really good horror comic. Looked like a Harvey comic, but had blood, guts, and violence.
Nice.
Have you read much EC, Paolo?
Here and there, I try to read a story or another whenever it came up. I was interested in getting the science fiction library because I've never been much into the horror stories. Maybe the pirates. I know there's also a collection of the pirate stories, but yeah, I'm really not familiarized with EC as I wanted to.
Yeah, the problem with reading EC, like the horror stuff, is that it's been ripped off so much that it seems derivative. You read the original EC stories and you're like, oh, this is so derivative.
Yeah, especially when the EC artists were all working at DC 20 years later.
Yeah.
On the same stories.
That's like the main problem with reading EC horror stuff. It's like, if you read like their war stuff, it doesn't read as derivative because nobody's been ripping that all off. Sleepy Reader says, I like EC sci-fi best. I might like their war stuff because the Harvey Kurtzman war stuff is really good. Shall I go over the other bad one since we're in the bad mood? The other bad one this week, so I'll get them out of the way early. Everything else was good. Was Supermassive 2024. And this is the one that's an annual for the Massive Verse, the Radiant Black and Rogue Sun universe. And for this one, it wasn't the writing that made it bad. It was the art. Let's see. They should come out with a book that's about how much money kids spend on their parents' money. That would be scary, says Tats Comics. You have kids, Tats? I snagged it EC Sci-Fi, not read it yet. But my main problem with this is the art. And who's the art? And the artist choice I did not like. Who's the artist on this? Stefano Simeone. Simeone. Stefano. Simon, however you want to. Simeone. And I just, I'm not saying he's untalented. I just didn't like his choice because there's no black line. So it's kind of all digital painting, but it looks like a color page with the black channel turned off. Let me show you. Since there's no black line, there's very little. Everything blurs together. There's very little holding. There's very little to tell one part of the art from the other. Like what's going on that splash page. It's all one big amorphous blob. Like, look at that right there. I mean, like there's no black holding. Maybe it looked good on screen. Because I think he's doing the color. Yeah, because there's no color artists. So this is all, and it's just like color shapes. I had a hard time following the storytelling, just because the color was all sort of one vibrancy. It's like what's going on in that page? How do you follow the storytelling on that page? I don't know. About 10, 12 pages in, I stopped paying attention and just kind of skimmed some of the balloons. Like what's going on that page? Who can tell? Everything's just kind of a mishmash of color. So I just the choices the artist made to make everything a mishmash of color. Just I couldn't read it. I was trying to keep up with it, but holy cow, I couldn't. And it just like what's that right there? That's supposed to be some sort of glitchy otherworld thing, but so much of it was glitchy that it just even look at that double page spread. Who can tell what's going on? I can't. So that was our other disappointing one. This one got an F from me because I just couldn't make it through it. And it was another $6 one because it's double sized even. So let's see. Undead Quince's Flash Gordon #1 was a fun read, a pick for this week. I think Flash Gordon was sold out at my shop. I missed it. What time is it? They're gonna repeat it. Okay, yeah, I saw Flash Gordon #1, but being that I already had 14 comics, I was like, and I think it was a $5 comic. It's from what's their name? Mike Mart's company, Mad Cave.
Mad Cave.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Mad Cave.
Mike Mart's at an interview at the Dollar Bin Bandits channel.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't watched any of their interviews yet, but I saw that he was going to be on there. I'm like, oh,
Mike Martz is not a good public speaker, is he?
No, I've never seen him. He's a good speaker. I mean, he's one of those guys who everybody likes.
He was kind of drone. He had a soft
public speaker.
Voice.
I don't know.
Yeah, during the interview, he had a soft droning voice, and I kind of tuned out.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what kind of public speaker he is. Like he's a good one-on-one speaker or 1-on-2 or 3. Like he's one of those guys everybody likes. So I imagine I never thought he was a bad speaker, but never seen him speak publicly either. So those were my 2 bad comics. And I rarely get bad comics. I mean, sometimes I get #1s I don't like, they don't quite do it for me, but I make it all the way through them. I didn't make it all the way through Supermassive, and I barely made it all the way through that EC one. Mm-hmm.
One of the other books I picked up, again for the same reason, Green Arrow.
Oh, look at that.
And this is issue number 14. Is part of the Absolute Power tie-in. That's the next DC crossover event where all the characters loses their powers. The art's pretty good. I have no idea what the story's about yet, but it ties in. And again, it's one of those things where because of the cover, I'm going to read the issue and see where it goes. Green Arrow is one of those books that I occasionally do read when it comes out, but it's been a while since I've read Green Arrow, so I'm not sure who currently is the Green Arrow, if it's the regular guy or if it's his son or one of his wards.
That just reminded me of saying they all lose their power. I didn't actually read this, but I remember someone telling me it. that that Marvel supervillain prison they have that I can't remember the name of. What's the name of the place they throw all the supervillains?
For Marvel, I believe it's
In
the Vault.
The
The
Vault.
Vault.
Yeah, I think it's the Vault. Where it's like since nobody has powers in the Vault, like Batroc the Leaper was a real badass because he could actually fight.
Right.
So that Green Arrow will still be a superhero because he doesn't have superpowers. He just shoots a bow and arrow really well. So he
Right.
can still be a badass superhero.
He can, Batman can, Nightwing. You know,
Yeah.
you basically took down the really big, heavy hitters, but, you know, do we know if Superman can fight if he doesn't have his super strength? I don't know how good of a fighter he is.
Yeah. So I'm going to do my comic shop order for that and some other stuff I missed. Yeah. Very cool Green Arrow cover, Wilson.
Yep, that's why I bought it. The cover got me.
Yep, that's the Jose Garcia Lopez DC style guide.
Yep.
The Raft. Is that another prison? Because the Vault?
The outer dimensional one, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's that.
They have a few of them.
I think the Vault was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's the old one.
Right, the old one. The Vault.
And the last comic I picked up, which actually came out a week before, was that Rocketeer Breaks Free. The name of the book, because I did want to try the Rocketeer itself. And this one had like 2 covers, one of those blank covers that I was really tempted to get to draw on, and I don't know if there was another cover, but I want to say they might have been 3 covers, but this is the one I picked up just because he's saving the kids. But so far the artwork looks pretty nice. I have no idea about the story yet. I haven't gone through it. But I'm looking forward to it, just because I like the concept. I like the character of the Rocketeer.
Right.
So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, I like the look of it. Oh, I guess these are the other covers.
You want to like the Rocketeer.
I want to like the Rocketeer. I would like the Rocketeer to be my favorite pulp hero. Don't know why, but that's how I feel about the Rocketeer. And it's because of the visuals.
Yeah.
It really is only because of the visuals that he just looks like a really cool character.
Dave Stevens originally created him. Nice art from Dave Stevens, you know.
And the previous book, I guess, was called The Great Race. Because there's an ad here for what looks like the trade paperback. So I
think I remember. I think I remember that one.
And I even like the logo.
Sleepy Reader says Rocketeer had fun art and almost no plot, in my opinion.
The original one? Yeah, I kind of agree, but so?
As long as it has the great art, I can look at it and go, ooh.
Speaking of good stuff, after those bad comics, I'll show you one I really enjoyed. Hate Revisited. Issue number 2 of 4, I think this is. I'll show you a little of the art. And it's called Revisited because there's some color in here. There's some black and white because he's telling stories from different eras of Buddy Bradley. So he's a back. So in this one, we get a few different stories because you know what it is, the sort of story arc he's had, because Buddy Bradley has aged nearly in real time. So the story arc he's had from the 90s till now has kind of been pretty well depicted in the 3 volumes. So now he's going back and putting things in between story. Like in here we get this is the story of Buddy and Stinky. That's his friend Leonard, Stinky. First meeting. So we flash back to high school Buddy, where he first meets Stinky. And Stinky was always crazy in trouble. And So we get their sort of first adventure together. And then we get a story, which is funny, called Buddy and Lisa Warning Signs. So now this flashes to sort of the where we last left off, Buddy. And he's got a son who I don't know exactly. There's Buddy's son with the red hair right there. I'm not sure exactly how old he is, but I think he's out of high school. Because Buddy even says, what are we gonna, and it's like his son has got this friend who's an old, and we get to see sort of the reversal because Buddy was sort of this wild teenager and wild young man, and he grew up into this more conservative adult, though you certainly wouldn't call him that conservative. So now his son is hanging out with this old weirdo, and Buddy's just like, oh my goodness, we gotta stop. And he's talking to Lisa, who he's known since he was a young man, his wife. He's like, we got to stop him from doing this. She's like, he's the exact old weirdo we hung out with when we were his age. But of course, now we're seeing it from the other side. Buddy doesn't want his son hanging out with the people he hung out with when he was his age. So that was a funny story. And then we finally get to see one of the most shocking parts of Hate. And I had forgotten it was from Buddy wasn't actually there for this. It was his younger brother, Butch, who was almost grown up. And here's a little shot of it. Stinky and Butch were out at the beach shooting bottles. And Stinky, to this day, Butch isn't sure if he killed himself on purpose or if he was playing around pretending he was going to shoot himself and then accidentally shot himself. Either way, he shot himself in the head and died. And then to save Butch, he and Butch just buried Stinky's body. They just said he left, and this is like in the late 90s sometimes. And then for various reasons over the year, Buddy has had to move Stinky's body in order to stop it from being discovered. And he never told his wife this. And he finally told his wife this in this issue. But that was one of the most shocking things in all of the Hate storyline, because Stinky was like he was Buddy's pal from high school, and all of a sudden he just died, and you're like, what? Like out of the blue. So they're revisiting that, and it's just a nice revisit of all the different time. And this one had a lot of Stinky in it. A nice revisit of some of the different years of Buddy Bradley and Hate. So terrific. It's as good as Hate ever was. So I got to say, I've really, really enjoyed that issue. I look forward to 2 more. I wish there were more than 2. Not the current one. When he's talking about the old ones with almost no plot. Have you guys ever read Hate?
No.
That's something you should really get your hands on. That is good stuff.
Yeah, it was not. I never picked up an issue. I've seen it all over the place.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing it on the shelves, but I don't know if it was the artwork or just it said Hate on it that made me go, I'm not interested. I think it was, to me, it was too independent.
Right. I can understand.
The artwork looked okay. I wasn't turned off by the artwork, but I remember seeing it on the bookshelf and go, The
artwork looks nothing like superhero artwork. So if you're a superhero guy, that's not going to turn you on.
No,
but man, is it a good comic. It's just one of the best. I also got, I think, the final Submariner I needed, which is issue 56, an Alan Weiss cover. In that Marvel 10th anniversary. And I think I may have, just because it was the last one, may have gone too fast on this one. Because it's got some, you really can't see it on screen, but it's got some folds in the cover. And I saw them there but I noticed these white covers were harder to get in good shape. Centered and pretty white rather than brown or off-white and chip. But when I was looking, like a nice copy of this was around $25. I did not want to pay $25. Crappy copies were $25 too. I mean, it's amazing how the pricing on eBay of this stuff is all over the place, these Submariners. So you can get someone's trying to sell a crappy copy for $40. Someone's trying to sell a nice copy for $25. If you look around I've been finding nice copies for $10 to $15. But this one ended up being $11.68 all in with shipping and tax. And I could have waited to get one without creases in the cover. Maybe I could find, but it's like I couldn't find a really nice copy. I was looking for a couple of weeks. A really nice copy for 10 to 15. So I finally went, you know what? I'm going to get this okay copy. Even though it's got like 3 folds down it, you really can't see them that much. I'm like, you know, it's the last one. I don't want to wait any longer. I just want to get the last one. So I got the last one. Now I have all 15 10th anniversary Marvel Submariner covers. I'll have to make a video of them. A lot of interesting cover artists, too. You know, Bill Everett, Alan Weiss, Gil Kane, John Sal Buscema did one. Lots of little Atlanteans in it. You have come home, Namor, and you shall never leave again. So now all of them are done. By the way, Chris Geruso not being on made me forget to pre-order the first issue of that Venom he's got the cover on.
Right.
I think final cutoff was last week, and I completely forgot to look at the Venom books. I can't even Venom Quest or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not too sure of the name.
Congrats. Yeah, got them all. I was happy to have filled those out. First back issue thing I've gotten in a while. But I'll have to put the next, I think it's Venom Quest. He's got all 5 issues he's doing an alternate cover on. So I'll have to look for those. See if I can find the first issue somewhere. Who knows? It might be on the shelf at my LCS.
One of his mini Marvels appeared in one of the Comics Without Context groups on Facebook.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was about. Because usually they're pretty serious. Sometimes people try to get away with posting covers, which is kind of missing the point.
Yeah. I see those pop up every now and then in my feed, but I'm not in the group.
There are several groups.
Yeah.
I used to be in another one, then I wasn't. Now I'm in a different one.
I don't know how I feel about them. Sometimes they amuse me, and sometimes they annoy me, and I can't predict which it's going to be.
People keep posting that panel from The Punisher saying, "I don't pay taxes."
So like that one would probably annoy me. I can't quite figure out why. One never knows. Venom War is this. Oh, Venom War, not Venom Quest. Okay. Venom War is the series that Chris is doing some alternate covers on. Very cool. One that I picked up from last week, speaking of covers, Paranoid Gardens. It came out last week. It's also bagged and boarded by Dark Horse. There's even a UPC on the bag, on the board, pardon me, because it's got a die-cut cover and Dark Horse thought that it was, if they shipped it regular, it would mess up the cover. The cover would get messed up, which happens to die-cut covers, pardon me, not die-cast. Die-cast is a car. Die-cut is a cover. Because what happens is like pieces of the whole get bent over and stuff like that. But the reason I picked this, I passed it over last week because I'm not much of a Gerard Way fan, but I didn't realize Chris Weston was drawing it until our friend Bunch posted something about it this week. And I was like, oh, I haven't seen, who's Chris Weston is one of his friends. So like, oh, I haven't seen Chris Weston's work in a while. Maybe I ought to check it out. So here's the die cut cover. Hold on, let me get big. So there's the guy amongst the foliage. And there he is with Superman being wheeled away on a gurney behind him, or Shazam or someone. But what happens if it wasn't in this bag is some of these little pieces might get bent over as the books rub up against one another. That's what Dark Horse was afraid of. So they bagged and boarded it. How much is this one? A $5 one. Here's some of the Chris Weston inside art. I can't think of what else Chris Weston has done right now, but he's done a bunch of stuff.
What do I have by Chris Weston? The Filth.
The Filth, right? He did that.
And the Ministry of Space.
Ministry of Space. But I generally like his art, and I haven't seen it in a while. So I figured I'd pick it up. And it was okay.
Yeah, it looks different.
It's hard to describe what it's about. But the first thing it established is there's some sort of Walt Disney Mickey Mouse company in this world. That's their Mickey Mouse, who's this ape. And then it switches over to this, it looks like an old folks' home, but for superheroes and aliens. And so then they're taking care of these superheroes and aliens. Like let me show you this. They wheeled in this like Superman-like guy who they had to help. And he's like just freaking out. And as you can see, his laser vision is going off. So they finally get him calmed down. And our main character is like this woman who's some sort of nurse or attendant. And she goes in to see the Superman alien again. And when he sees her, he says, "Oh my God, I know you," and starts freaking out again. And then at the end, we get this, the Disney-like corporation and guys show up and say, and it's like, this is sort of the mic drop at the end that makes no sense. It's like, and we accept. In return for granting you eternal life, we want the gardens. We'd like to expand our corporation to include luxury vacation resort of wealthy senior citizens. Like, what? That doesn't sound evil. That doesn't sound like anything someone has to worry about. That they're turning this, I don't know, old age home for superheroes and aliens into a luxury resort. I'm supposed to think that's evil somehow, and they're giving eternal life to. It was a weird twist. It was one of those books where it was well done. I was enjoying it, but the whole time I spent going, I wonder what this is about. And at the end, I still don't really know what it's about. But I'd pick up a second issue of it, but I think I missed Final Order Cutoff. So we'll have to see if my comic shop gets one in. If they do and I can pick it up off the shelf, I'll give it another issue. Because I liked the Chris Weston artwork.
So it's deconstructing old superheroes. I'm not sure. I just...
Deconstructing old superhero rest homes that they want to turn into deconstructing the vacation resort industry that wants to take over old folks home. What? Reminds me of Vertigo era art. Yeah, I think Weston did some Vertigo stuff. Right?
He did a couple of works in The Invisibles.
Okay.
And Lucifer.
Right. I think I know him from Lucifer.
He did.
He came from 2000 AD, so
right. And Bunch was a big 2000 AD fan, and he was the assistant editor on The Filth, so that's where Bunch knows him from. That ours give me League of Extraordinary Gentlemen vibes. Yeah. What meta this about?
Not exactly. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was by Kevin O'Neill, which is completely different. Although you kind of see the British mocking style when it comes.
There's a quality to the inking too.
Mm-hmm.
That's all about delineating little things. But yeah, like I said, I'm glad I picked it up. I just can't tell you what it's about because I'm not sure. Don't you love when that happens? Hold on. I don't think I ever showed you my the latest Funko Pop that I painted. Another one I just found for $3 and painted it with stripes and swirls and colors. And I think who is this? Becca from Hocus Pocus 2. So I think she's some Disney character. I think it's a bobbleheaded one too. Well, it used to be a bobblehead. Now the head doesn't bobble. I wonder if I painted it shut. But that's just the latest one of those. I think that's number 1, 2, 3, 4. This is number 6 I've done of these. I wasn't sure if I'd ever do any when I decided to buy a few, and now I've done 6. Nice, thanks. Did any of you read Ministry of Space? Was wondering if it was any good. I did. That's the one that who wrote that one?
Warren Ellis. It took forever to finish because it caught Ellis getting sick. Then Weston was busy doing The Filth. Then getting sick also delayed Planetary. But the ending was anticlimactic.
I remember liking it. It had a 2001 A Space Odyssey vibe ending. I remember, but I remember enjoying it.
If you can find the miniseries for cheap, buy it.
Yeah. Was that the one with the Doors Corporation instead of Windows? Was that Ministry of Space?
No.
What am I thinking of? Which one was Ministry of Space then? The guy, was it that the one where he had to go out into space because they had some alien intelligence out there?
No. The British got the German scientists on instead of the Americans, and they created the space program.
That was the alternate timeline one. Okay. Yeah. There's another one I liked better. I enjoyed that one, but there was another one I liked better. Oh, I think Chris Sprouse drew it by Warren Ellis, and that was the one that had a 2001 vibe to it. I cannot remember the name of it, but
Sprouse did for Warren Ellis.
Yeah, I have it somewhere here. If I knew the name, I could. I could find it, but I don't know the name, so I can't find it.
Wait, Warren Ellis, Chris Sprouse. Let's see.
I like Jared's Funko better than most store versions. Why? Thank you. Looks better than the store.
Was it Ocean?
Ocean, that was it. I believe that was it. Yeah. That one I think I liked better than Ministry of Space. Ministry of Space was very sort of straightforward. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, if I remember correctly. I don't even remember the ending of it. But Ocean was, I remember liking that one, was much more contemplative. Frequency, no, it was Ocean. Think of Switchblade Honey. I don't know that one.
That's a good name, though. I like the name. Switchblade
the
Honey.
bell. Can't remember.
Switchblade Honey. Yeah, but Ocean was a pretty good one. Ministry of Space was all right. Like that was an alternate history one, Ministry of Space. But I like alternate history stuff. Was that the one where they were like, this is what really happened? Like the Ministry of Space was actually secret. So they had what was going on in the space program and what was going on in the Ministry of Space program.
No, but it's an alternate reality. Because the British get the scientists.
Right.
So it has certain vibes of Doctor Strangelove.
Eric P. says Switchblade Honey was Ellis doing his take on Star Trek.
Huh.
Oh, wow. That one I don't know. And it was a very big Tony Fleece week for me. I actually had 3 Tony Fleece books, if that's how you say his name. FEEC. The first was Feral. And this is the one that's about the house cats who are caught up in this rabies outbreak. And it's a zombie story for house cats. Except the house cats have to watch out for all the zombified animals, plus the humans trying to kill all the animals with rabies. And we lost like 2 of our main characters in this issue. I got to tell you, I can barely tell the cats apart. I mean, you can easily tell them apart because they all look different, but they all look like cats to me. So I sometimes have to go back and go, okay, which cat was this? Okay, this was the brown and tan cat. Okay, this was the cat with the orange stripe. Okay, this is because they're all just cats to me in my brain. But goods, and this issue made me realize that, like most of the, like from the creator of Stray Dogs, Stray Dogs had like a 5-issue mini. They can do a mini series of this, or they can just keep it going as if it was The Walking Dead, pretty much. Feral is such a great book, says Undead Quinn. Yeah, it's really, didn't even notice it's a wraparound cover. There's one of the rabied cats going after them. Exactly. The bats in the story may affect the later. Exactly. In this story, they found a barn full of rabied bats, which means that the rabies can now go as wide as it wants to be because there's 10,000 bats with rabies out flying around there. That's what made me go, you know what? This could go on forever if it wanted to, with our friendly, cats living and dying. But it's the writer is Tony Fleece. The art is by Trish Forstner and Tone Rodriguez. Color by Brad Simpson. No letterer credited. And this is the one that someone on here told us that Trish Forrester draws all the cats and Tone Rodriguez draws everything else. Yeah. So it's but that was the first of the Tony Fleece books I got this week. The first of the 3. Let's see, what else did I get? The second of the 3 Tony Fleece books is Local Man, which is good again. This is the one that he draws too. I think he writes and draws this one. It's a flip book. Tim Seeley, I think, draws he and Tim Seeley both write it, and Tony Fleece draws it, and Tim Seeley draws the backup 90s style book. This is about that disgraced superhero who now had to go back to his hometown, and terrific artwork once again. Some terrific artwork. And after the dealing with the villains of the first story arc, in this second story arc, like this cult takes over. And here, I gotta say, sometimes this is like a Walking Dead full splash page. I always said that The Walking Dead had the worst splash pages. And I've been told by people that it's not the artist, what's his name, Adler, who decides on the splash pages. It's the writer, whose name, the big Walking Dead writer, whose name just flew out of my head. He's every time I read all the issues of The Walking Dead, bought it, and every time I came to a splash page, I was like, what? And like this splash page, and it's even on a page turn. It's there she is, she's taking off her helmet. Page turn, it reveals her. And even the character is like, who the hell is that? Was it a joke about Walking Dead Slayer? I'm not sure, but that's the first thing I said. Who the hell is that? And the character's like, who the hell is that? And they're like, is she one of your third gen villains? I have no idea. She's pretty and blonde. I've met a lot of pretty blonde people. So it's like, the characters don't even know. I'm like, why did you give us a full splash page of a character that not even the characters in the book know who it is? So that was just like a weird moment that made me go, huh? Is this some sort of joke? Because that's exactly, because those were the words out of my mouth. Who the hell was that?
That is it is funny that it's like, were they building that up as a joke?
It wasn't funny while it was well, I have to admit, the who the hell is that line was funny. That did make me giggle a little, but I was just like, what? That's kind of funny, says Friar Tuck too.
Agree.
But this has just been a terrific series. 2024 Eisner Award nominee, Best New Series, and very deserved. It's been a really fun series. Let's see. Co-creators, writers, Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley. Farmington art by Tony Fleece. With colors by Brad Simpson and Alan Pasalacqua. Third gen art by Tim Seeley with colors by Felipe Sobrero. Once again, no letterers. I wonder if that means that the artist is doing their own lettering.
It's possible.
Or the writer. I mean, both writers are artists, so. Plus, there's no letterers credited. There's colorists credited, but no letter. I wonder if they're doing their own lettering, the writer/artist. Because that's the second book that was like that. Let's see, what was my other Tony Fleece book? The third Tony Fleece book of the week. There we go. That was kind of funny, not gonna lie. Yeah, certainly funny to talk about. Uncanny Valley. This is the guy who found out he was part cartoon. I think we were introduced to them. So now his Yosemite Sam grandfather was trying to help him out, but found out that he was leading him the wrong way. There's the first. Now, is that like a Maleficence thing?
It looks very much like a Maleficence thing. At least influenced by.
Yeah. Because when I showed you these before, you were picking out all the influences, like the
right. The skeletons are very
Betty Boopish, I think was the.
Yeah, it has that oh, there's a famous one by Disney about Halloween's.
Right.
Um, so the skeleton very much looks like that.
That's clearly Yosemite Sam. And so, once again, it's just him trying to escape these evil cartoons and find his destiny. But this one is by Tony Fleece as the writer. The artist is Dave Watcher. Pat Brousseau, former Marvel bullpenner, is the letterer. No colorist credited, so I assume Dave Watcher is doing his own color. Looks like it's colored right over pencils, too. Except the cartoons have a hard black line around them. But another good issue of 3 Tony Fleece books, all good. He's getting to be one of my favorite creators as a writer and artist. I actually know his name now. There's so many names I don't know. Hocus Pocus. Is Hocus Pocus a Disney movie where this character comes from? Or is that a TV show? Hocus Pocus 2 must be a movie.
Hocus Pocus was a movie. It had a sequel. It was about 3 witches. It's a comedy, and
Okay.
3 witches are like released. And all the actresses of the witches are escapes
Oh, is
my
that the one with like Bette Midler
Yes, Bette Midler is definitely one of the witches.
and the original one is from like 20 years ago or
Yes,
something, maybe longer now. And then they
just
just
about, yes.
did a
They did a
redo of
sequel
it a few years ago. Okay, I have a vague
with the
memory.
same actresses.
Mm-hmm. Was
So
Cher in it? I
no,
can't
that's
remember.
Witches of Eastwick.
Okay, I'm getting my
It-
witch
it-
mixed up. Did you
But
get
I
to
do
read
not
anything?
recognize the character that you have painted.
I have no idea who. I mean, she doesn't look anything like she looked. Pop originally looked, but I didn't know who Becca was.
Right.
Did you get to read anything this week, Paolo?
I did not.
No,
Mhm.
I was busy reading my 14 freaking issues. I was like, whew. Take a guess how much 14 issues costs in a week. I get a 10% discount.
About $70.
$58.
Hmm.
So a little bit less than that. But whew. Usually I go, yeah, $80. $80 is a little much. It'd be $80 if I was buying Marvel and DC, maybe. But 58. And there were some expensive ones in there. Like there were Psychodrama Illustrated. Another a lot of $5. Listen, $5 indie comics are okay with me. This is one of the Beto Hernandez ones. Lots of nudity in this one. And it gives you one story up top, which is one of Fritz's movies. And down the bottom, it gives you like a comic strip. So there's 2 stories going on. And what this is Fritz in the Betoverse, she's an actress who starred, she's an actress from Mexico who starred in a lot of Mexican B movies. So he does adaptations of the movies. And that's what Psychodrama Illustrated has been. So this is one of the movies she's been in. And since they're like they're exploitation movies, there's lots of nudity in them. And since she has a really big chest, there's lots of nudity in her movies. And in this particular one, the nudity has to do with she's kind of, and whatever's going on in this movie, DeSalles is the name of the movie. She's like the town prostitute to these powerful men. But then some guy gets accused of something and hangs. And then that she really did, and he hangs for it. Then his father hangs himself. Then at the end of this story, the ghost of the guy and the ghost of the guy's father have sex with her against her will. I don't know what you'd call that. Ghost rape. So there's a whole scene of her being raped by ghosts. You can't see the ghosts at all. You just see her. This really weird B movie. But her boobs are flying all over the place because the ghosts are grabbing them, and it's just such a weird story. But it makes perfect sense in the B movie world. Yeah. This issue of Psychodrama Illustrated was very dark. Yeah, it was darker than normal, yet still exploitation movie-ish. And I think it's going to continue. Yeah, it ends with her flying up in the air, so we don't know if she lives or dies. Or I don't even know if that might be the end of the story with her flying up in the air, but I don't think so. But I really enjoy Beto's stuff, so I had fun with that dark exploitation movie as a comic. I wonder whether they're going to reprint those little strips, because I know they're going to reprint the main story in a hardcover book. They always do. I like manga size hardcover book. But where they reprint the little strips, I'll never know.
Speaking of strips, when they do collections of newspaper strips, instead of doing those gigantic volumes, why don't they just reprint them as manga size? You'd probably get a lot quicker through all the storylines, and make sure that if something starts it started in 1942, you can actually start reprinting stuff that was published in 1975.
I think the problem is that I don't even know if it's a problem. The people who love those strips are strip purists. If you're buying Terry and the Pirates, you're a Terry and the Pirates fan already, and you want to see those strips as close as possible to the original print size.
Mm-hmm.
And putting them in those pocketbooks, because as a kid, we always got the Peanuts pocketbooks and the Family Circuit and Dennis the Menace, and those work well in that size. But shrinking down like an adventure strip to that size, I don't know.
Yeah, we had a magazine that it wasn't digest size, but it was smaller than US format, and it was black and white, and that's where they reprinted all the newspaper strips.
Right.
So they were shrunken down. Also in Portugal, most newspapers were always tabloid sized. And so the strips didn't even take up the entire breadth of the page, because they would just take up about half to 2/3 of a page in width.
Mm-hmm.
And because they had to share room with the Spot the Six Differences. And so we were used to seeing them small. So if they could reprint that thing in 400 pages for $15, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Instead of 200 pages for $60, which is what they do.
I think that they would have to be aimed at kids, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, the kids don't want to read black and white.
I don't think think old people want to read the strips in the tiny pages. Right. I think that's the problem.
Because I remember liking Beetle Bailey, and they were reprinted in those small books, but they were in color, if I remember correctly. And like you mentioned, Heathcliff and the Peanuts and all that.
Right.
That format worked for a kid.
That format works well for kids.
Yeah, so I think it's the thing is that where do you sell those?
Yeah.
I
Mm.
think
I
that's
saw
where it
another
comes down to the problem.
Undead Quinn says, I can't judge. I read all the red rooms that got messed and then messed. I read Crossed. That's even more messed up. Just print the strips in the Garfield landscape size. Could be, you know.
'Cause, yeah, you I know you can fit 4 or 5 daily strips in one page.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do the thing sideways, they usually just have two.
What strips are you talking about reprinting? What would you like to see?
Uh, Johnny Hazard.
Okay.
I think I know that they reprinted Rip Kirby.
Okay.
So although I'd very much like to have Rip Kirby in an affordable format so that I could finally buy it. Even the Phantom, they insist on starting in 1939, and then the collection fizzles out when they're still in 1943. Okay, for starters, I want to read the Cyberry strips because they're better than the Wilson McCoy ones.
Hmm.
They really are.
Okay.
And
You want them in an affordable, readable format.
yeah, so please, 400 pages, as close as possible to $15. And yes, I can read them in manga size.
Yeah, I noticed on Twitter this week another thread by somebody about how another one of these "Are comic shops dying?" threads. We need to get out of the direct market and get comics into gas stations and this again. I'm like, oh yeah, good luck.
Okay, no. What you need to do is have the guys that sell the most actually have their comics for free on the app. Okay, for free.
Mm-hmm.
That'll work. That'll work better. Then it's always the thing. You need to get the kids to read. Okay, the kids are online reading free stuff, so give it to them for free, and figure out a way to have advertising. Especially because on the app you can't block the advertising.
Yeah, that's why they like you on the app.
Yeah,
but kids like apps. They don't do things like go to the website.
Right.
That's me. So that I can use that block.
Yeah, but I couldn't believe how people really think they're geniuses going, yeah, we got to go back to newsprint and being in 7-Elevens. And they're like, dude, those markets don't exist anymore.
You're right. Well, although sometimes I do miss them. I occasionally I stop by a newsstand just to see what they have there.
Oh, nothing.
And nothing. It's depressing. But I do miss going through a newsstand and go to my favorite sections and go through all the magazines. But yeah, but I get it. There's no point in buying stuff at the newsstand.
There's nothing at the news. There's like magazines don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The two newsstands that I have stopped by semi-regularly, at least, because there's nothing to see in them, is the newsstand at Secaucus Junction train station and the newsstand at Penn Station train station. Now, Penn State back in the 90s, when I used to go through Port Authority, there was 3 or 4 newsstands, stacks of stuff. You know, I used to love going there and picking up a magazine or two. Now, you know, when I go through, and Penn Station used to be the same way, but I was never in Penn Station. Now, when I go to a newsstand in Penn Station, they got like a dozen magazines and nothing I'm interested in. And they're all like $20. It's crazy, too. But it's like, you know, those newsstands don't exist for comics to be there anymore. It's crazy.
You know, most of the newsstands I run into are like in a Barnes and Nobles. And I have no interest in guns and ammos. I have no interest in guard eating. They're all trade magazines for specific crafts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is, you know, Photoshop magazine may have
right.
a comic book thing on the cover, or there is some art magazines that do occasionally do comic book or fantasy art type stuff.
There
And I
used to be
used
an
to
art
enjoy it.
magazine section
Yeah,
where there was, 5 fine arts magazines,
Mhm.
6
are
how-to
still some of
magazines, a
those are
couple of
still in Barnes and
illustration
Nobles.
magazines.
Some of those are still in Barnes and Nobles, but that's the only place I ever see them.
Yeah, I
You,
haven't been to Barnes and Noble.
you know the funny thing, before everything went online, there were 3 or 4 history magazines on the stands.
Oh yeah.
Now there are still 3 or 4 history magazines on the stands. Apparently, the guys who want to know new stuff about history, they buy the magazines.
I have a subscription to Archaeology magazine, and by
Yeah.
their ads, everyone who buys it needs a hearing aid, can't get up from a chair because they need a lift to help them up from the chair, and want jewels from the ancient world.
Because between the new car magazines, the new truck the new not trucks, the new commercial vehicles magazines, the new bicycle magazines, in the classic car magazines, in Portuguese we had about 20, 25. Now we have 4 or 5.
There used to be
But the history magazines, man.
8 to 10 video game magazines.
Yeah.
Per month. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa. Sleepy says, here the only newsstand is Barnes and Nobles, yet the mags seem to cost $20 or more. Yeah. Magazines are expensive these days, right? There's some sci-fi horror magazines that might have some comics coverage. Yeah.
We had some magazines that used to cost, if they cost $5, they went down to 1.
Yeah.
Just to see if people would pick them up, and they would, because at those prices, they could try to have high print runs, and then they could try to scam the advertisers.
It was all about circulation and advertising.
Yeah. Even that worked until the pandemic. Yeah. Then the pandemic ruined it, and when they came back, they had to go back to being $5.
Huh. Though I do have what's his name, Cannon's magazine comic magazine still to be read. Mm-hmm. Loading the Cannon. Mm-hmm. I have all 3 of those, but
that's a low print run for a specific audience.
Yep. Not gonna see those on the newsstands.
One thing that I think could still try to attract the market is annuals for trade magazines.
Okay.
Something that picks up, that dissects and digests the biggest happenings of the year, because then those are stuff that you want to keep. Mm-hmm. The important stuff that you want to keep, because all of the daily stuff, it goes by.
Right.
But if something is important and you have something that tells that used to be it, the magazines would select what was try to select what was important, and that there would be an impetus for people to continue buying. But since now everything is online and there's news every day. At the end of the year or in the middle of the year, you put out a yearbook or an annual, and the most important things of the year, and something that you couldn't read online. Because now you have room to spread, you can do 10-page articles and do different types of photos, which is not something that you do online.
No.
There are several occasions where I tried reading fairly large news items, which were bigger than what would fit in a magazine, because there's no space limit. But I understand why most people have low attention spans. When I noticed, I felt like I was reading that thing forever, but it was only 10. It was only 10 minutes. It was fairly big. I wasn't even halfway. Yeah. And if it was a magazine, I read so far. I'll stop here. I'll come back. I'll get back in 20 minutes. Read some more.
Supermassive, which I didn't like this week because the artistic choices, but I actually like the idea of it because this is an annual. Mm-hmm. This is all the or a bunch of the characters in the Massive Verse teaming. This is the third annual they've had of it. So even though I didn't particularly like this annual, I like the idea of it still. So in comics, annuals used to be special, but that was before everything was a long continued written for the trade story. And an annual was a longer story than an individual comic, so it was kind of cool. But they've gone by they still have annuals, but I mean, like Marvel and DC. Does DC put out? I know Marvel has put out some annuals recently. I don't know if DC has.
Yeah, but even the annual, even the annuals are gimmicky at Marvel.
Yeah. Well, at least they were trying something. Another a series that finished this week is No One issue 10. And speaking of gimmicks, I don't know why the ending of this. This is one of those that it was a sort of a police procedural, journalism procedural, whodunit, and the ending was pretty well done. But it was almost like the end. There was like a lot of explanation needed at the end to sort of wrap up a lot of the mysteries that were going on, and it also came with a podcast I never listened to, with Patton Oswalt and Rachel Lee Cook. I think we're doing the podcast. But as they sort of wrapped up at the end, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, it's wrapping up. And it wrapped up kind of like a podcast. And I was like, you know what? Did I make a mistake by not listening to the podcast? I wonder what this would have been like if I listened to the podcast each week as the comic was coming out. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I made a mistake not doing that. But I mean, oh well, and I can't fix it now.
Right.
Because I've already read it. But I was like, I wonder how it would have been different. I probably would have had more understanding of the ending. Because I think the ending depended. I'm not going to say depended. The ending, I think the ending would have been richer if I had listened to the podcast. Because I wasn't as involved in the mysteries of the ending as I could have been. And that's kind of what I realized as I was reading the ending.
Well, you could always go back and read the first issue and listen to the first podcast and see if it enhances at all. Technically, you should be able to just read the book and get everything you need from it. And the podcast, if it's smart, should enhance it. It shouldn't be like a must do kind of thing.
I don't think it was until the ending. Until we got to that end. Like I said, I've been reading the whole book without the podcast. Didn't need the podcast. But when I got to the ending, I was kind of like, I didn't always know exactly what was going on. And then there were after it kind of ended, there was more discussion in the book itself by the characters about what just happened and what they saw. Sort of like a pod in. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if, like, I never thought. Obviously, if I'd wanted to, if I had the idea that this might be better with the podcast, sometime along the way I would have listened to it. But I didn't really get that idea until the very end. So that was a little. I wonder if it would have been different. But yeah, it's been a fun series though. But that's another Massive Verse series, but I don't think it ties into the Massive Verse at all. No, as far as I could tell, no one had superpowers. It was a police and journalism procedural almost. So I was like, okay. It's part of the Massive Verse. No one from that book showed up in the annual, in the Massive Verse and Supermassive annual, which this tied in a lot to the Radiant Black story that's going on now. more so than any of the other stories. Hmm. Water is good for you. Let's go back in time.
Back in time.
This is my little book where I sometimes write down if something occurs to me during the week that I want to talk about on the show. I write a little note, and it's like, see, I'm not sure when this note is from. I don't have it dated, but the note I have is flexi discs. Nexus Black and White number 3, Critter 23, and Scout 19. I wonder what thought I had about flexi discs. I don't remember. Maybe it had to do with that. What was that? What's the furthest place from here? Vinyl that was showing up in that one. I love notebooks where I have random notes from over time, and I'm like, I wonder why I wrote this down. I have no idea. But I have a love for you. Do you use notebooks, Paolo?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
And I used to have plenty of notebooks. I had about a dozen of them that I used to take notes during the races. But it's not like I have one for this type of race, and I have one for this type of race, and I have one for the other type of race. No, okay. So let me pick up which notebook is closer to my hand, and put it on the computer bag. Oh, make sure I have pens. How many? 3. Not enough. Let's get more. 3 more.
I got into the habit of buying every time the new school year starts, I buy the composite notebooks. So I buy stacks of them. And basically, I use that as my main note taking. So if I have a call with a couple of clients, I open up the book, put the date on it, name who I'm talking to, and then I take my notes that way. The problem is I don't do it in any particular chronological order. So I just open the book, put the date on it, and then go from there. And then I usually keep it on the bottom of my computer mouse. So it's always getting smudged, it gets dirty. So for a while, I used it as my mouse pad. And then I try to put it in kind of an order. So one is for the studio for freelance stuff. One is for Section 8 comics, my own stuff. That information I keep like convention appearances and stuff like that. I try to, but a lot of times it's like, oh, I have to write something down. I'll grab the book. Luckily, I put a date on it, so at least I could kind of do a search. But a lot of times the problem is I'll be flipping through the book trying to figure out, okay, what was this about? What was that about? And it turns into a book of just everything. Here I got some notes about Wolverine. I don't even know why. Oh, okay. So this was notes. This is notes for the Wolverine, one of the Wolverine movies. And it has like the director's name on it, and notes that I enjoyed the movie. I don't know what this was going to be used for. I have no idea what it was for, other than maybe it was something related to conventions or for something on social media. So I have, you know, oddities on notes, um, prices on flatting pages. That might have been when I hired someone to do some flats for me. So it's just a little bit of everything, no rhyme or reason in it. Even sketches, because I might have been on the phone with somebody, and so I drew some sketches. So it's a little bit of everything. There's some prices on it, and it can also be like This is when I just grabbed whatever was handy, and it happened to be a red pen.
Yeah.
So, that's how I end up taking notes is, buying these at the either at the start or just at the end of the new school year when you can get 10 of them for like $1. And I always kind of kept notes like that. I don't have it here, but I did find a notepad that I used to take with me at conventions when I worked at Marvel. And it was a very similar format of the date on it, but that one it was a smaller one. It was a green one, and I would do a line down the middle, and on the left side would be the things that I needed to do, and then on the right side was like, did it get done or does it get pushed to another date, type of thing. And that's how I used to keep notes. Not really learning it anywhere other than, oh, I need to take this steno pad with me to the convention and then have to deal with like, oh, we need the following items for the next day or what have you. And so I found one of them that barely has anything in it. So it must have been a brand new one that I didn't get to really fill out. And I don't know whatever happened to the ones that I know that I filled out. Maybe I left those at Marvel. I don't recall.
Who knows?
Yep.
By the way, I got a Mike Dolce book here. I think this might be my favorite cover of his on the Sire. Two women, and it's by let's see who does that cover. Cover by Mog Park and Danielle Caramanico. I don't know who Mog, but I like, neat cover. But I just saw he made an announcement at San Diego Comic-Con. First time he's been able to make an announcement. Something to do with Mariano Nacizia and somebody else who are friends of his were having some announcements so he got up and made his announcement. But he's doing something with Steranko. I don't quite know what. I think he may be getting Steranko to do a cover for him or something. But I'm going to have to look into that deeper. Mike Dolce, who did Mike's books, does this book. That's pretty good issue, too. Mike writes it, and Andres Barrero does the artwork on this one. Superhero story. Some talking, trying to figure out what's going on here. I've been having fun with this one. Mike is someone I knew 20 years ago when we used to have Marvel Wizard touch football games. So I used to play touch football with him. So I figured I'd start picking up his book. He's gotten a lot of issues out in this last year. Issue 8 already. So it's been fun reading it. And I got to look more into what his announcement was. Because like I said, it had something to do with Steranko. So that should be possible.
It's possible it may just be a cover.
That's what I would assume. I can't imagine anything more than that.
Right, because Steranko, from last I recall, he was working on putting out, like, reissuing some of his older posters and stuff like that. And I do know that Mariano has spoken to Steranko to do some covers. So it may be something like that.
I think he and Mariano are doing a one-shot, too.
Right. Mariano's a phaser cover. A phaser character.
Right. They already had a crossover, but I think they're doing a one-shot also.
Probably.
So we'll see. But I thought it was interesting that he got to make an announcement at San Diego.
Find out. I'll probably find out about that afterwards when I'm asked to letter it. Chances are, if Mike doesn't have his own letterer, chances are I would be lettering it. And it's Nicieza is how he told me how to pronounce it.
I learned how to pronounce it 30 years ago, and I keep forgetting. Nicieza. Like I said, I knew that. I just can't say it. I just won't know it tomorrow.
Right. And since you shared your art project, I've been doing, if you follow my TikToks, I've been rebuilding a 1996 Kenner
Ooh,
snow speeder.
let's see.
And this is from the Power of the Force 2. And basically, the story was I had bought just a shell from a thrift store called Unique for $1.99, and it was just basically the shell. And then I've been over the summer been slowly getting the parts for it to rebuild it. And the funny thing about doing this one and finding pieces is that through the course of getting the pieces, I end up getting an original 1980s snow speeder that may be the part two build for it. And I actually just recently got a snow speeder Luke Skywalker, or pilot Luke Skywalker, from the original line to put in there. So I still need a couple of parts. I still need the tow hook, cable, and the projectile that would go in here. And then I need the battery casing. Right now, I just have a 3D printed one because it was considering the 3D printed. And that's basically it. And then most of it will be done. And then I just have to get the 1996 Power of the Force Luke Skywalker, which I do have. So
Cool.
I still have that packaged. I never opened them up. I kept them at Marvel for a long time when the Power of the Force ones came out. I had just kept tacking them onto the wall, and I had like maybe 12 figures on the wall at Marvel. So I was just putting those together.
Fabian, did he do stuff for Valiant back in the 90s? I think he was with Valiant second era in the 90s, right?
I
He
believe
was
so. He
he
may
worked
have wrote for the previous Valiant, but
oh,
he became kind of like I don't know, the editor in chief or something like that. The second
Editing,
go
yeah.
for Valiant.
and then yeah. And he also what were his books at Marvel? The New Warriors?
New Warriors, mainly Deadpool.
That yeah.
Co-created Deadpool.
Nomad.
Nomad. Um,
Cardiac.
did he work on
No,
Cardiac?
no,
Yeah,
he didn't.
I think he was the co-creator of Cardiac.
Of Cardiac appeared in Spider-Man.
Yeah, I
He,
know.
ne- he never
I
Was
spun
he
think he
off.
was one
writing
of the
Spider-Man
aliens.
at the time?
I think
I don't
I think
recall.
he could. I just remember laughing at him because of it. So
Oh yeah,
so I think
it
Cardiac
was a
was
fill in Web of Spider-Man, I think, wasn't it?
Oh,
Cardiac.
okay. So if it was a fill-in, so it was Cardiac. So that's Eric Larson and Fabian. And I'm told we'll never get a Cardiac action figure because they would have to pay Eric for that, and they don't
Ah,
want to.
Friar Tuck. I had the original snow speeder as a child. Great memories and great fun with it. Had some pretty epic snowbanks in upstate New York that I played with it in. Yeah.
Nice.
I actually, I'll show you the piece of art I did this week because I think it was Tit Goblin who found Veronica number 34 because Betty and Veronica, I think it's from the early 90s, because it was a Veronica cover where she was in a bikini with pink flamingos around her. So of course, because of our Reed Riffin Slab, he showed it to us, and I've kind of had my eye on that comic, just to get it someday. But it goes for $25 to $40, and I
Wow.
just don't care about it that much.
Right.
But this week, there's one. In some of my covers to comics that don't exist series, I have this series called Painted Ladies, where I draw a female figure, then I draw tattoos all over her. So I decided this week, I got it in my head, to take that Veronica and the Pink Flamingos cover and cross it with one of my Painted Ladies cover and make my own. Then I colored it on the computer. So I made my own. I drew it and made my own Painted Veronica cover. So there's Veronica with a bunch of tattoos all over her. And the pink flamingos. And I forget who, I'm going to have to look up who the original artist is and write it on there because I can't remember. It wasn't one of the more famous Archie Comics one. But there's so it now says painted Veronica. And basically the same colors that were in the original cover.
Dolphin, the first flamingo.
I was also thinking about doing a marker color version right over the ink. This is a printout. Doing a marker color version right over the inks, but I haven't done that yet. But yeah, painted Veronica. That's what. Rather than spend $30 or $40 on that comic, I decided to spend a day and a half making my own version of it.
There you go.
No dolphin tattoo, says Eric P. No, I didn't even think of that.
That'll be the alternate cover.
Yeah, I might have to, but I actually did that once. I'll have to go and see with though this is funny. Do you remember the DC series Dolphin from the 60s that became hot like 5 years ago for a blip of time when she was supposed to appear in some movie? There was only ever one issue of it in the 60s.
I recall the cover. I recall the ads for it.
Her swimming,
yes,
full body. Yeah.
Yes.
I actually took that one and made a painted lady out of her, I think. But I don't think I ever colored it. I just did that like years ago for some reason. I'll have to add it to that and make a series. I don't think I put the painted cuff to put that in digitally and color it digitally. See that? Once you do two things, you've got a series.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else did I get this week? Monstrous, number 53. Marjorie Liu, Sana Takeda. And this just a terrific issue. It's hard to even describe what's going on plot-wise because we've had 53 issues of intrigue and plotting and war and all sorts of things happening for 53 issues, and it continues. And it has actually gotten, I think, there was about a good half a year they sort of went off into this pocket universe. And since they've gotten back from that pocket universe, is really ramped things up. And I've been really enjoying it the last, 4 or so issues. Not that I didn't enjoy the pocket universe stuff. It was okay. But I think it's only gotten stronger since they've gotten back from that pocket universe. But I don't have a ton to say about Monstrous, except it's a really good book. But if you were to jump in the middle of it, I don't know. I mean, it's all available in trade, of course. You even take it out of the library, probably. But if you were to jump on with issue 53, it would take you a while to catch up, even though they give you a nice recap here at the beginning. Explains who 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters are, plus gives you a story so far. So they do their best to catch you up. But I'm not sure how well anybody would catch up. But one of my been a favorite for a while, so good stuff. Monstrous. Lord Tatman's comic says, I was always curious about Monstrous, but since it's so far along, I don't think I can jump in and understand what's going on. You may as well just try, though. I mean, how often do you get the chance to just jump in and try and figure out what's going on? So most series just end so quickly these days that it's like, you know what? It's kind of fun to jump in and try to figure out. I've done that with a couple of series that are, usually only like Ice Cream Man. I jumped in the middle of.
You can kind of do that with European comics.
Yeah.
Because for the love of comics, he had a 2-hour video and he showed the UK editions of a French series, Dungeon. And he said, I don't know how many books there are, and I told him, oh, in France there are 59 books and in three.
Wow.
And between the main series and the 3 or 4 spin-offs. So that's something that's particularly successful, because you only know if a series is successful 10 years after the first volume comes out. Because by then you should have at least 6 books.
Yeah. Lord Tapman's comes and true. I enjoy ongoing over short stories. Yeah, I really still enjoy the periodical nature of comics. Like I enjoy following Usagi Yojimbo for 40 years. I enjoy following Monstrous for, I don't know what it is now, 5, 6, 7 years. I enjoy following Savage Dragon for, how long have I been following? Since the late 90s, I'd say. Since it's, 30 years I've been following Savage Dragon. So I like a comic I can live with. I find that particularly enjoyable. I mean, I understand people being put off by long-running comics, but that's in my wheelhouse.
Well, the problem is, since you're really never sure if you can buy the singles because everything now is low print run.
Right.
The trades, it's that thing that you have to commit. You have to commit to the series, and the trades are $20.
Well, what I do now too is I'll just like with Uncanny Valley. This is just issue 4, but I think I didn't realize this was a Tony Fleece book. So I was like, oh, I picked up issue 2 with Uncanny Valley. And I said, oh, can you get me issue 1? And luckily they could. And there was another one, like, there's a couple where, what was the other one? The James Tinian book about conspiracies. All of a sudden I can't remember. That one was like I jumped on with issue 7 and got, 3rd, 4th printings of some of the earlier stuff. So it's like I try not to be. I'm kind of like, I'll jump in the middle of something, and if I like it, I'll go back and get the earlier stuff or the trade. So I try not to worry about not being able to get things. Try to say, I don't want not being able to get early issues to make me miss out on the later ones. That's just kind of like a decision I've made, because it's like, why do I want to miss out on something I might like just because I can't get these early issues? So it's like I kind of have to give myself, but I certainly understand the instinct to go, oh, I didn't read the early part, so I don't want to start now. I want to start at the beginning. But I try to like fight off that instinct so I don't miss out on stuff. Because that is the instinct of us, correct?
We had a series of adventure books for children and young adults. Of course, there were no young adults back then. They were for children, but they were sort of in the vein of Famous Five and the Hardy Boys. And the first one I read was number 3. The second one was number 23, and I assembled the collection book by book and never in order. Of course, I was about 10 back then. And those were cheap. The first ones had come out in 1983, so that was about 7 years before I started, and they were cheap enough that you could assemble all of the books without spending too much money. I eventually stopped by the time I was 15, 15 or 16, because I really nope.
I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah. You kind of notice the writing. You expect the you need. It's not what you're expecting. You need the writing to move forward into other things, and you're not going to get them there because
Right.
those books were for what you used to be and not for what you are now.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have about 37 of them. And
Just for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah. It's up to 70. The two writers are they were high school teachers, and they're both retired now. They're in their 70s, but there's still books coming out.
Time just keeps moving forward.
They made a lot of money on that.
Lord Tatman said, I bought the hardcovers of Black Sod, but they've been sitting on my shelf. Got to open them soon.
Yeah, you do.
Lord Tatman says, I love the continuity of a long ongoing. Oh, yeah.
The big problem is that something needs to happen on that book. You can't just have it as a setup for something that's going to come out in 4 months. Something needs to happen in that book. That's what we got. We bought the book once. We had an adventure. We stuck with the book. We were rewarded with the story moving forward somewhere. It was a reward for being loyal, not the main reason for the book to exist.
Right. Another series ended this week of mine. And that is The Six Fingers, number 5. And this is another one where the ending made me sort of reevaluate, sort of like No One. The ending made me reevaluate whether I should listen to the podcast. This one had a sister book that Ram V was writing, and I forget who was drawing it, called The One Hand. And in that one, it was from the point of view of the detective. And from this one, it was the point of view of the serial killer. And for whatever reason, I didn't pick up that one, but I picked up this one. So, and I've been perfectly happy with it. I didn't feel I missed out on anything. But then when I get to the ending of this one, I kind of feel that I missed out on something, in that he was giving the explanation, because to call him a serial killer is really a bit misleading, because he was just sort of a normal guy who was on this quest for knowledge. I think he was in school. He may have been a teacher, but he also worked in this. But he was taken over by like the spirit of something. He didn't know what. And this also takes place in sort of a sci-fi-ish world, where the only thing you have to know is there are these automatons, these robots, who they call cogs, who have, sort of limited intelligence. And then they do menial work. That's what the cogs are for. They're to do danger. And they're just sort of back in the background here. You don't really notice them in the story except as part of the flavor. Meanwhile, we get the story of this guy here, the Six Fingers, and his girlfriend who breaks up with him, a friend of his girlfriend who starts getting interested in him starting to black out at times, writing these sort of huge, elaborate, where's one of them? There he is writing this huge, elaborate symbols on the wall that he doesn't know why he's writing them. So you think he's has this serial killer sort of taking over his mind somehow. Some sort of outside force is turning him into this. And so this last issue, he gets arrested by the cops. He now thinks there's something. And here's a weird thing. His father gave him, see that pointy thing right there? His father gave him that and said it was part of some ancient civilization, unknown civilization he found. So in the very first issue, he showed you that, it's just like a round ball with a cone on the end, that he wants to he was telling like his college that he wants to go on a dig to try and find what that, and they're all like, that's nonsense. That's nothing. But then that mystery kind of went away as this serial killerness came in out of him. So then in this one, we get finally he's confronted by the cop who's the star of the other series, who we haven't seen in this series yet. And the other series, I think, already had its last issue. So he has this big confrontation with the cop who's who he's talking to, his father, is this. But here's where I think I miss out on the explanation a little bit. Where I'm not exactly sure how it ended, but I think it ended with this serial killer telling the cop that the serial killer was really an automaton too. Only he didn't know it. He's like, we're all just cogs in your story. We're being made to. It got sort of Matrix-like, where all of a sudden everybody in this guy's story was really just some sort of artificial cog in the cop's story, whatever that was. And you want to talk about things that take you out of a story? Remember when we were talking about Ice Cream Man last week and the guy going through the windshield, and how did he get over usually the driver, the steering wheel stops them, and how come the passenger had an airbag, and that just took me right out of the story. What took me right out of this story for a moment is this character here, who's, this toy right there, the ball on the strings? What did they call it? Newton something. Where it goes clack, 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 until it stops.
Right.
It's supposed to show you, teach you about motion and the transfer of motion. What is it? What's it called here? Something pendulum. Oh, and this woman here is telling you a story about her childhood, and how she got upset at one of these because they lie to you. They say it's supposed to go on forever, and it doesn't. And I was like, who told her it was supposed to go on to forever? When I first saw one of those, one of the things you learn from it is in the transfer of energy, you always lose a little bit of energy. That's why you let it swing, and then it swings out this side, and it keeps going until it loses all its energy and stays still again. I'm like, who told her it was a perpetual motion machine? No one ever told me that. Matter of fact, it was a example of how you couldn't have a perpetual motion machine. So the fact that she learned the exact opposite of what I learned from the same toy took me right out of the story.
So she didn't learn. She didn't pay attention. No. And I think maybe that's the lesson there, that she did not learn it.
But at the end, this guy, what happens? Where's like I said, something with his father shows up. Oh, and the cop ends up killing the killer, who's like, I'm not even real. I'm just a cog in your story. So I think everyone in this comic was just a cog in the cop's story who has some sort of matrix around him that keeps his story. But then the funny thing is, we finally we get to this. Then he's like, all the cogs, show yourself. So like in the very end, all these people come out to the rooftops, who I guess were just discovered they were just cogs in this cop's story too. And I think they just leap off the rooftop because they were nobody. They're nobodies. They're just automatons they're like, holy cow, we're just automatons in this story too. So it had this really weird ending. But then the very last page, remember that ball with the cone on it that I said was like key at the beginning? We get to see in the very last, some guy puts it up and puts it on one of these drinking birds. So that was really, one of those drinking bird toys that just goes back and dips its beak in water and goes sort of like one of those pendulum toys. And
Right.
that's what it ends on. So I think it was like, I think everybody was just automatons, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was a good series. But like when I got to the end of this, I was like, maybe I should have read that other series and I would have understood it more. I'm not 100% sure I understand it now. So, but much like no one, I was like, maybe I should have listened to the podcast. With this one, I was like, maybe I should have bought the sister series. So, though both series were good, there's a little bit of regret in them.
Right.
And I don't think most comics come with that kind of regret. What series would you have to have read another series to fully appreciate? That wasn't just a sequel, like After Watchmen or something.
Nothing that I can think of. Like I'm trying to remember
You're
like what
always late.
sister books went around,
Evening.
and it's like, at one point Superman, they were
Yeah.
weekly. They, that story went across all the titles, but there's nothing that I can think
Yeah.
of that was like you must read this
It
to
was a
be able to
weird.
understand the other one.
It was a weird feeling of regret that I don't think I've ever experienced reading a comic before. Going, maybe I should have listened to that podcast. Maybe I should have read the One Hand or whatever it was named. It was
trying to think of something, but
yeah, it might be the first time that I've kind of felt that. Maybe I should have followed the instructions, even though they weren't really instructions.
Mhm.
I don't
So,
know if that's ever happened. And twice in
I
one week.
cannot think of any
No.
in the past. I mean, I guess since I'm only reading Transformers, I probably would enjoy the other books that are part of that Energon universe that's going on. But that might just be because it's continuity wise, it's all happening within the same universe. So, and that's really going back to like Marvel books.
Yeah, that might just be I'm enjoying this. I'd probably enjoy more of this.
Yeah.
This was more like regret. Maybe I would have enjoyed this more if I listened to the podcast. Maybe I would have enjoyed this ending more if I read which I didn't have those thoughts at all in the first 9 books of No One or in the first 4 books of The Six Fingers. That thought never entered my head. But with the last issue of each one, it did. A little regret. Like, I think that's new. I haven't had that kind of regret before. I should have read such and such first. Even with books where sometimes you start with like book 5 in a series. I don't go, maybe I should have read books 1 through 4 first. I go, oh, now maybe I'll try and find books 1 through 4 since I liked 5. There's no kind of regret that goes with it.
Right.
There was a Sandman spin-off, The Dreaming, which was made by Neil Gaiman. I wonder if you can read The Dreaming without reading Sandman.
Oh. Good question. I don't know. I wonder if you can read After Watchmen without reading Watchmen. Since I just mentioned that one, I don't know. But I don't know that any would come with regret. That was the strange thing, the regret. How would this have been different? And that's like I always say, one of the reasons I like comics as periodicals is you only get one chance to read it as a periodical. You only get one chance to read the latest issue of Hate and then come on here and discuss it with maybe other people who have read it. It's a different thing to go back and read it all, which is, I of course like doing, but it's a different experience than reading it one issue at a time over time, where you can talk about. Matter of fact, I was just my top of the printer museum books that I was showing off. Those are, if you don't watch my weekly video, every week I put 2 comics on the top of my printer, just so I can look at their covers all week. And then I usually show them off on my Wednesday comic pull list haul, and then put them away and pull out 2 more covers. But one of them I happened to pull out this week was X-Men 128, I think it was. It was the one that ended with Wolverine in the sewer. It was the first Hellfire Club story where the Hellfire Club kicked all the X-Men's ass. And they captured all the X-Men except Wolverine got like knocked through a bunch of floors and disappeared. And then the Hellfire Club went about kicking the X-Men's ass. And the very last panel was this really gray panel of Wolverine rising up out of the sewer, looking over his shoulders and saying, "Okay, bub, now it's my turn," or something like that. And that was like the very first appearance of badass Wolverine. Mm-hmm. And I was buying it, monthly at the time. And I cannot tell you how hard that issue hit. That last panel hit. When you turned that page and all of a sudden badass Wolverine was coming out of the sewer, baptized in sewage.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it hit so hard that the next issue was anticlimactic. The next issue didn't live up to the promise of that last panel.
Because it was published by Marvel and they didn't do what should have been obvious. Wolverine was hitting the Hellfire Club soldiers with the flat of the blade.
Yeah.
But that's what I like about the periodical. You only have one chance to experience that as a periodical in time. And I just happened to be, I think I was 13 when it came out, the perfect time for something like the perfect age. So that's one of the reasons I like periodical comics, is just for that, chance to, and then, that was all we talked about that month was, me and a few friends who were, because there weren't a lot of X-Men fans at that time either. It was tough to get people to read the X-Men. It wasn't a hot book. Hard to believe now, but the Byrne Claremont X-Men was not that hot a book.
No, it was during the Paul Smith run that it started selling. Right.
So just to get, those of us who were reading it were just like, "Oh, that was so cool! Oh my, I can't wait to see what happens next! Oh, what do you think?" So we talk about it, for the next week at least.
Which is kind of funny because reading it in another country, with in a different format, with a different publishing schedule. When they finally got the rights to the X-Men, they pushed them right off the bat, and we're talking they had missed like 5 or 6 Byrne issues.
Yeah.
And before, and they started with the X-Men going to Japan.
Okay. What's that guy's name?
Paul Smith?
No. Before, what's the name of the villain who was trying to sink Japan with his earthquake powers? Moses Magnum. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a weird issue to start with. That was just kind of like a because the X-Men had like just gotten back from the the Legion of Superheroes stuff, and then they had to face Magneto, and then all of a sudden, like Moses Magnum, they were like, "Who's this guy?" They went from epic to Moses Magnum with an epic plan, but not quite epic.
It was an anthology. The Dark Phoenix saga was being published in the same magazine as the Frank Miller Daredevil.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it was quite a combination. Plus, Master of Kung Fu, they were still running the Mike Zeck pencil stories, which is kind of funny because in Captain America they were running the G.M. DeMatteis Mike Zeck run. But there's a strange confluence where we got all the good stuff at once. So it was Claremont Byrne X-Men, Frank Miller Daredevil, Mantlo Salbucema Hulk, Steve Englehart Avengers, then Jim Shooter Avengers, and then Michelini Avengers, all in the space of 2 years.
Huh.
And
good lineup.
Yeah, and the following year, Burn FF started as a backup in Spider. The Fantastic Four was appearing as a backup in the Hulk, and they ran the Roy Thomas issues, and then they jumped immediately to the Marv Wolfman Byrne run. So no Perez FF. We never saw those.
Huh.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to also be there month to month for the Frank Miller Daredevil. Mm-hmm. I had some Daredevil issues, but I happened to start buying Daredevil regularly right before Frank Miller got there. So I got to see the first, and you could tell something was right away. You could tell Frank Miller was special on Daredevil. I mean, there was no hiding it, because I had a bunch of the Gene Colan Daredevil back issue, and it was good enough for me to let me start buying Daredevil. And then Frank Miller came on, and it was like, wow, this is good stuff. You could tell pretty quickly. And then he started writing it, and it got even better. The last issue I got this week is Greaser Gemini Blues. This is a 4-issue series. And I bought it because of Derek Robertson. I wanted, as the co-creator of The Boys, I wanted to see what he was doing. But it turns out he's writing it. Somebody else is actually drawing it with some pretty good artwork. I think it's 4 issues. It's planned on being. Let's see. Exit solo. And who's the artist? Let me get the name here. Story by Derek Robertson. Art by Stephen B. Jones. Colors by Marcus Collar. Letterers by Sean Lee. And it's kind of this post-apocalyptic story. Takes place in like 2069. Where Earth is a bit run down, but there's these aliens on Earth too, who all live in their spacecraft. They're somehow trapped on Earth, and the Earthers have to try and fix their spacecraft for them. And I guess it's sort of like this slice of life sci-fi story so far. What does it say in the back? Buddy is a greaser, living in Earth's future in the middle of scorching hot Nevada desert, surviving by doing repairs in the local colony of alien spacecraft that have moved in decades ago, the Gemini. So he's building his dream car, and so it's sort of like a slice of life sci-fi story. But I enjoyed the first issue a lot. Like I said, I think it's 4. Doesn't say so, but I think that's what I read. So I guess Derek Robertson wanted to try his hand at writing, so came up with Greaser Gemini Blue, full throttle genre bending epic, and he's building his own car. So it's got a gearhead aspect too. But nice first issue. I think that was the 14th comic, the last of them that I got this week. I think I showed everything else off. Hopefully next week will be a little smaller because I can't do 14 comics every week.
That is a lot of books.
Yeah. What's the most comics you've got in a week in a while, Wilson? Because you just really started again, so.
I would say there have been times where I would pick up at least 4 books on my pull list, and I have grabbed maybe 8 comics off the shelf. It's probably the
Okay.
most that I've done. Um, that also may have included like maybe an issue and a back issue of something I
Right.
wanted to read and it had already started. But I don't recall what is the most from my recent time. Like what was
Right.
the large? Because most of the times when I'm picking up the books from the pull list, it's usually maybe 1 or 2 books. And there have been
There can be a
weeks where
couple
there'll
of
be
weeks.
5 or 6. Yeah.
And there can be a
So I will
couple of
have
weeks. So you
that.
can pick up 10 books, but that's over 2 weeks.
Yes, very much so. And depending on maybe how many facsimiles might be out
Oh, yeah.
that I might be interested in, so those end up being the extras. Like this week, if I didn't pick up the 2 DC books, I probably would have only picked up the Rocketeer, and maybe I would have looked for like one other book to give it a try.
Uh-oh, I dropped Supermassive. Not in mint condition anymore.
And now San Diego Comic-Con is going on, and a bunch of announcements have been made. And DC Studios, for their movie studios, had
Uh-huh.
showed off their new logo, and they basically brought back the DC Bullet.
Ah.
So that's now the logo for the DC Studios. Is everything old is new again.
There
So
we
they're using
go.
the original DC Bullet, just colorized a little more different, but it's the same bullet.
It's funny, sometimes I like to analyze how I ended up with 14 comics in 1 week. And it turns out in 1 week, I've got 3 final issues of a series and 4 first issues of a series. Let's see. We'll have to see. One of them's a one shot, but it's like, because sometimes I think I end up with 14 issues in 1 week when I'm like, uh-oh, a bunch of series are about to end. Let me see what I can find to replace them. And then when there's overlap, it's
you should find ones to replace them after the other one ends. No, the worst that happened to me was 1 month I only got 1 trade paperback. At the time I used to comb through previews, and I usually picked three a month.
okay.
And 1 month only 1 TPB arrives. Oh shit! And the next month, what do I get? 5 TPBs, and 2 of them are $30.
Oh.
This is wreaking havoc with my budget.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know the last time I had 3 series end in the same week. That's a little funny.
Hmm.
And this also might be the first week all 3 of Tony Fleece's series came out in the same week. That was strange to have 3 books by one creator involved with all of them. Oh, and I printed out another random cover this week. For some reason, this cover caught my eye this week. Strangers in Paradise 72. The tramp stamp cover. So this is just, I was looking on eBay for, I don't know how I ended up seeing it. This cover really caught my eye on eBay. But of course, I already had it on my shelf. A nice low-rise jeans tramp stamp cover. So I was like, oh, let me try scanning that one in and print it out. As I do, I'll throw it. I'm gonna have to give these away at the comic shop or something, because I did that Flash one but it's I don't they're just kind of as a craft, just kind of keep my printer printing. But it's like I don't actually do anything with them, and they just pile up. I'm like, someone might want a print of these butt covers I scan in and print out. So I have to bring them to the comic shop and just give them away. Because I really don't need them. They're just fun to do every now and then when I want to do something but don't have the energy to make an actual piece. Let's see, what other ones did I have over here? Here we go. They go with the Flash. Whoops. These are the ones I've done over the summer. I think I've showed them before. Hulk 200. My favorite Submariner with Dr. Doom. These are just scanned in my own Captain America 128 on the motorcycle. Crossfire, the one that goes for $500 comic. Let's see, what else did I do? Harpy, the Incredible Hulk, and the Flash that I bought. So I got these just sitting around.
The Harpy had anger management issues.
She did. She was not happy with the Hulk. Captain America. Oh, that one's the lighter one. Submariner. That's another one to throw on that part. Like I said, I'm just going to have to give those away. Because I don't really need them. Now I wasn't hot at the beginning of the show. Now I'm hot at the end of the show.
I felt it did get warmer through the course of the night. Luckily, I have my fan right on me.
The temperature stays about the same. I just think we work up a sweat talking about comics. Getting all excited about Wolverine coming out of the sewer.
Right.
Crumpling I think he's even reaching for like a pipe and crumpling it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that,
so he can pull himself off.
Right. And that comic, you often see that like on the line and stuff, and it's so much yellower than it used to be. Because the whole panel is like in shadow, but the yellowing of the page has actually made it even more in shadow. Unless you get, the crisp white version of it from some reprint somewhere.
You know what would have made that scene better? If Wolverine already had his brown costume.
I was always okay with the yellow costume.
No,
I never hated the yellow costume.
One thing that I know that I noticed, because I used to do it in my elementary school's notebooks, draw the original costume but paint it brown.
A lot of people like that brown costume a lot better than the yellow one. I was always okay with the yellow one. So
I was introduced to Wolverine in the brown costume, so for me it was like
Right.
That was the introduction costume. That was always his costume until I discovered he had the yellow one. I was like, this is awful.
I was introduced to him in the yellow one, so
Right.
the brown one was like, what's this newfangled? Well, I actually understood the brown one. They were trying to make him a little more toned down. They didn't want him bright. Like, we don't want him in bright yellow.
Kind of want to match almost Wolverine animal colors.
Yeah.
Give him some of the brown.
Well, we should say good night for the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think I've seen any confetti tonight. I didn't do any confetti or any balloons. We need some. All right.
There
confetti,
we go.
balloons, lasers. We'll get all of it at the end here.
There we go.
All right. Fun as always.
Yep.
Everybody have a good night out there.
Enjoy
Take
the
care.
Olympics.
Have a good weekend.
Enjoy the Olympics. Go watch the opening again. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.